Good evening, ghouls, gargons, ghosts, goblins, and gargoyles. I'm sure you've heard the story of Cointelpro, the abbreviation of Counterintelligence Program. And I'm sure you know that Cointelpro officially, secretly existed from the 50s through the 70s. Although Cointelpro-style actions have existed in the US from the labor movement of the 1850s and the creation of the Pinkerton Detective Agency, clear through to the targeting of activist groups today. And what kinds of Cointelpro actions are these? Well, discrediting targets, psychological warfare, smearing individuals and groups with fake documents and planting false reports in the media, wiretapping and using informants and other methods of surveillance, harassment through fomenting infighting or the funding of rival groups such as racist, fascist, or even ultra-right-wing militias, as well as using wrongful imprisonment and even assassinations. Yes, I'm sure you've heard of these horrifying tales, but did you know hidden within these tales is a particularly insidious story? A tale of dicks in the FBI. Yes, two men by the name Dick Held, Richard Held. That is, Richard G. Held and his son, Richard W. Held. Yes, these two ghouly ghouls were involved in some dastardly deed.
Cointelpro Papers by Ward Churchill, page 140. On the evening of December 3rd, 1969, shortly before a planned raid, infiltrator O'Neill seems to have slipped Hampton a substantial dose of secobarbital in a glass of Kool-Aid. The BPP leader was thus comatose in his bed when the 14-man police team, armed with a submachine gun and other special hardware, slammed into his home at about 4 a.m. on the morning of December 4th. He was nonetheless shot 3 times, once more or less slightly in the chest and then twice more in the head at point-blank range. Also killed was Mark Clark, head of the Peoria, Illinois BPP chapter. Wounded were Panther's Doc Satchel, Blair Anderson, and Verlina Brewer. Panther's Deborah Johnson, Hampton's fiancée, 8 months pregnant with their child, Brenda Harris, Louis Trulock, and Harold Bell were uninjured during the shooting. Despite the fact that no Panther had fired a shot, with the possible exception of Clark, who may have squeezed off a single round during his death convulsions, while police had pumped at least 98 rounds into the apartment, the BPP survivors were all beaten while handcuffed, charged with aggressive assault and attempted murder of the raiders, and held on $100,000 bond apiece. Christ, that's horrible.
In 1983, Judge John F. Grady ruled that the FBI, including Chicago SAC Special Agent in Charge Richard G. Held, had in fact been conspiring to deny Fred Hampton and Mark Clark and other Black Panther members their civil rights, and had orchestrated a cover-up of FBI involvement with Hampton and Clark's assassinations. Sanctions were imposed upon the FBI for its cover-up activities, and $1.85 million was awarded to the families of the deceased. Richard W. Held began his career in the Los Angeles office of the FBI in 1968. He quickly became the lead agent in the Racial Matters Squad, which focused on what the FBI called black extremists.
A January 28, 1970 memo by Held to the director of the FBI. He states, "I request Bureau approval to attack, expose, and ridicule the BPP. Operation Number 1 is designed to challenge the legitimacy of the authority exercised by Elmer Gerard Pratt."
In 1970, Richard W. Held helped orchestrate the false imprisonment of Geronimo Pratt. Pratt was accused of committing the December 18th, 1968 tennis court murder in Santa Monica, California. A murder in which two black men robbed and shot a white couple, Carolyn and Kenneth Olson. Pratt's alibi is that he was 400 miles away in Oakland attending a Black Panther Party leadership meeting. Black Panther members who attended the meeting were barred from testifying on Pratt's behalf. The defense argued that because the FBI had been secretly surveilling the Black Panther Party, then they would be able to prove Pratt's whereabouts on the night of the murders. The FBI denied engaging in such surveillance. When the surveillance, what is called the June logs, were discovered to exist, the FBI was forced to divulge the tapes through a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. Although the FBI surveillance tapes were provided, mysteriously missing was the surveillance tapes during the period the murders took place. Not only this, but the key witness in the case, Julius Butler, was found to be an FBI informant. Geronimo spent 25 years in state prison. He was released in 1997 after a judge overturned his conviction based on prosecutorial misconduct. Richard W. Held was also linked to FBI operations against racial justice activists Bunchy Carter, John Huggins, and Gene Seberg. There is a Geronimo Pratt documentary linked in the description. The American Indian Movement activist Leonard Peltier was asked to a gala at Pine Ridge Reservation to help in pursuing land rights for the Lakota tribe. While in Pine Ridge, 2 FBI agents were killed in an altercation. The FBI claimed that the 2 agents were lured into Pine Ridge by American Indian Movement members, who then assassinated them with automatic weapon fire, stripped the agents, scalped them, nailed the scalps to a post, and took off. In actuality, the 2 FBI agents were looking for someone accused of kidnapping and aggravated assault, but who was, in actuality, charged with stealing a pair of cowboy boots. Consequently, the 2 FBI agents were actually shot 3 times. No automatic weapons were found, and the stripping and scalping claims were completely false. Immediately after the shootings, 250 trained SWAT personnel appeared on the scene. 1 Indian man was killed in the pursuing firefight, and the rest of the Native Americans fled the scene.
Agents of Repression by Ward Churchill, page 246. The day after the shootout, Richard G. Held arrived in South Dakota with a force of 170 armed agents who began a military-style sweep across the reservation seeking suspects. The agents used M16s, helicopters, tracking dogs, and armored personnel carriers to conduct a series of raids, during which many Lakota said the FBI broke into homes without warrants, physically abused innocent bystanders.
Goons, otherwise known as Guardians of the Oglala Nation, a paramilitary force, was used as an FBI surrogate in carrying out the suppression of the American Indian Movement. This group received protection from arrests as well as M16s from FBI Cointelpro agent Richard G. Held.
A July 26, 1975 memo to the Washington Bureau's Intelligence Division notes, Supervisor Richard Wallace Held arrived at Pine Ridge, South Dakota Indian Reservation Command Post on June 29, 1975 to assist the Resmers reservation murders investigation. He was assigned 3 important phases of this investigation, namely, the correlation of Bureau-wide informants into the investigation, the establishment of the confidential fund, and the coordination of all intelligence information as it relates to the American Indian Movement, AIM, and the Resmers investigations.
In the end, the FBI engaged in a cover-up of the 70 deaths of the American Indian Movement members killed over the course of the events at the Pine Ridge Reservation. American Indian Movement leader Leonard Peltier was falsely arrested for the murder of the 2 FBI agents. Peltier remains wrongfully imprisoned to this day.
Leonard Peltier, who tonight, as I speak to you, and as I assume all of you know, continues to sit in a cage at the federal prison, Leavenworth, Kansas. Not for anything anyone, including his prosecutor, at any point in the past 15 years has been prepared to say they actually believe he did, but rather as a symbol of the arbitrary ability of the federal government of the United States to repress the legitimate aspirations of indigenous people within its claimed boundaries.
There is a Leonard Peltier documentary linked in the description. In August 1958, Richard W. Held led 300 FBI agents and U.S. Marshals in the repression of the Puerto Rican independence movement. Richard W. Held and his agents and marshals went through Puerto Rico, trashing offices and homes and arresting scores of activists, creating files on over 70,000 individuals. There is a documentary about Puerto Rican independence linked in the description. Judy Berry was a long-time non-violent environmentalist activist with Earth First. Judy Berry helped plan an event titled Redwood Summer, an action to promote the protection of the redwood forest. As Judy Berry and fellow activist Daryl Cherney were on their way to a concert to promote the event, after a bomb went off in Judy Berry's car, the FBI and the police were quickly on the scene. Though Judy Berry had survived the bombing, she was rushed to the hospital and was promptly arrested and charged for being a radical eco-terrorist who was transporting a bomb. Despite the bomb being a motion-triggered bomb, it had a metal ball bearing that was designed to set off the bomb when the ball rolled and connected a charge. It was also argued that the bomb was designed to blow up logging equipment, despite the fact that the bomb was packed with nails, a shrapnel bomb designed for a human target. In the words of Judy Berry,
so since they not only couldn't come up with anything at all to connect us to the bomb, but the evidence was so damning in the other direction, finally, after 8 weeks of public false accusations, the County of Alameda declined to press charges against us. And, but nonetheless, we were still not exonerated. Although there were no charges against us, what was said was that, well, there's still suspects. You know, we haven't been able to link it to them. There's not enough evidence to link it to them, but they're still suspects, as if we're stupid enough to carry this motion-triggered bomb under our own car seat, but we're too clever to catch for it.
In 2002, a jury in Judy Berry and Daryl Cherney's federal civil lawsuit found that their civil rights had been violated. As part of the jury's verdict, the judge ordered Frank Doyle and 2 other FBI agents and 3 Oakland police officers to pay a total of $4.4 million to the Cherney and Berry estates. No other suspects were ever charged with the bombing.
On October 15th, federal judge Claudia Wilkin dismissed from the case FBI supervisor Richard W. Held, who had been prominent in the agency's Cointelpro effort on the grounds that he had no duty to oversee the daily duties of his subordinate agents. The contention that the FBI was responsible for the bomb was also dismissed in the case, leaving the scope of the case restricted to malicious investigative malpractice on the part of the FBI, and the allowed damage claim reduced from $20 million to $4.4 million.
The Who Bombed Judy Berry documentary is linked in the description. Despite Richard G. Held dying in 1992, and despite Richard W. Held leaving the FBI in disgrace after the fiasco that was the bombing of Judy Berry, you may be shocked to hear that there are still dicks in the FBI today. We have the Green Scare. The Green Scare refers to FBI actions against the Animal Liberation Front, Earth Liberation Front, and SHAC, Stop Huntington Animal Cruelty, which took place in the early aughts. Essentially, the FBI used the post 9/11 fear of terrorism and various new anti-terrorism laws to engage in the targeted harassment of environmentalist and animal rights activist groups. After that, we have the FBI harassing the anti-Iraq war movement, and the FBI harassing the Occupy movement. And what about the FBI at Standing Rock? Perhaps the FBI is getting involved with Antifa as well. Yes, dicks in the FBI have been harassing activist groups for decades, and these dicks must be stopped. As always, did my voice sound like that the whole time? As always, I'd like to thank my wonderful patrons. You folks are incredibly helpful in helping me make these videos. I really appreciate your support. And if you're not yet a patron, but you would like to support the work that I do here, you can go to patreon.com/radicalreviewer. And if you're interested in radical theory, looking for a book recommendation or whatever, you can get your radical reviews here with the Radical Reviewer. Thanks for watching.
Well, Special Agent Richard Held is the man behind the show. He helped frame Leonard Peltier and jailed Geronimo. He falsified the evidence, life sentences, no bail. It's time to get them freed and let's put Richard Held in jail. The FBI stole my fiddle. FBI stole my fiddle. The FBI stole my fiddle. The FBI stole my fiddle. Richard Held stole my fiddle. And I want my fiddle back.
You think I'm gonna let you stinking feds trample his basic human rights?
Wait, it's not what you think. Listen!
Big government, big lies. Forget it, man. Power to the people!